Hey everybody, welcome back to the IGN Movies Podcast, Keeping It Real. Jim and Chris, we're not dead yet. We're still here hosting your podcast.
We're not dead yet. That's a great way to start.
Well,
That's
you know,
an optimistic message for the people.
I'm just saying, this is where it's a matter of just factual observation.
It's just a matter of years, says Jim.
Let's dive into the week that was in genre movie news before we're dead. Basically, there was a lot on the DC movies front this week. A lot of chit chat, a lot of chatter. Let's start off with James Wan directing Aquaman, the director of Furious 7, Saw, Insidious, The Conjuring. Now, I think it was Goldman and I did a whole conversation about, you know, what he brings to the table. I want to hear your thoughts on James Wan directing officially.
I like this. I mean, he's now proven he can do something, you know, with a huge scope and, you know, really, really big. The one thing that I think is a challenge for any director outside of James Cameron, who was the director of the Aquaman movie and Entourage, as you remember.
No mistake that this news drops the week Entourage opens.
Of course,
Same studio. I have to be aware of it.
I kind of feel like the underwater thing is the biggest question mark for anybody because it's expensive, it's hard to manage, it's hard to shoot around, I think. But I think he's up to the challenge. He showed a lot of different, you know, he was able to work in a lot of different locales. And I thought he also had a really nice sort of like soft touch to the end of that movie. So like the human element I think was on point. And that's a blockbuster movie. So like you know, I think he's going to be good in that. He's also just a really swell guy.
Yeah, we mentioned that too. He is a really nice guy. He also, though, you know, you touched on this a little bit. He does get decent performances out of his actors. Every one of his movies, you know, from the first Saw through to The Conjuring, you know, to even Furious 7, there was, especially near the end, there was a lot of, you know, very moving stuff. And it was just by virtue of the circumstances surrounding that movie too. But, you know, he is able to kind of bring out the best in his actors. So it's going to be interesting to see that element come into play in Aquaman. You know? Yeah,
and I think that there was, you know, I think any number of things could have happened with the end of that movie, and I just felt like it was perfect. It was like a light. It was like, I don't want to say it was a light touch. It was just like a perfect touch, and
it was well balanced.
Everything that happened at the end of that, I was very happy with. So, but I'm curious. It's going to be interesting because Aquaman's going to fit within that Justice League format. So, in addition to coping with a big budget movie, there's also like world building that he's going to have to do. And so, all those elements, you have to have a person who's used to juggling a lot of different things. And I think if Furious 7 wasn't a crash course in that, I don't know what it is.
And even handling, like, granted, he only directed the first Saw movie, but he did have a bit of a hand in the subsequent one. So juggling a complicated mythology, I'm sure, is not exactly new territory for him.
I love that Saw is a complicated mythology now.
It didn't start off as that.
It did not.
He did do the zero budget, you know, first one. So this man has worked on everything. Like Insidious, he basically made that on his computer. You know, so it's
pretty amazing.
He's come a long way. Well, we're curious what you guys think about James Wan directing. Let us know in the comments. The DC news doesn't stop there, Chris. It never does.
It shan't. There are so many movies coming out.
It shan't not. President, basically the film boss over at Warner Brothers, Greg Silverman, said the following this week when Hollywood Reporter talked to him about Wonder Woman. And, you know, they have, basically what's going on with that one is they have multiple writers working on the same movie at the same time, writing different scripts. And this isn't the first time Warner Brothers has done this. They've done this in the past with their other DC movies. So it's a very factory approach. But he was asked about that, and he says, well, every project is different. On some projects, we have multiple writers working together. In some cases, we put writers together who have never been a team together. And sometimes there is only one writer whose voice is right. In the case of Wonder Woman, the right approach was to have writers pitching different scenes within the framework we created. Recipe for a WTF.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. I mean, this is not it's not unheard of, you know, like it definitely has happened in a bunch of things. But It's interesting. I think what you need in that case, if you're going to do that, is you need just a really, really solid outline, and you need one person who can unify that script when it all comes in. Because it's an interesting approach. I will say this, and this is probably the most positive way you can frame it. Film is a collaborative medium in the first place. You know, there's a lot of people who work on these things. There's a lot of people who do this on rewrites. You know, it's like we're going to add, you know, like this piece and this piece and this piece. Then it goes to a different writer who adds this piece and this piece and this piece. They're kind of just doing that first and then smoothing it over. So there's all kinds of different ways you can make a movie, and he touched on like a lot of them right there.
Right.
So I mean,
in a way though, it's kind of like if you had a bunch of different contractors working on your house. What's your house going to end up looking like? And where are all the problems going to be? You know,
but that is the reality of a lot of houses, you know, like you have the plumber come in and the, you know, and the guy who puts in your hardwood floor. So, I mean, yeah, like I said, it's collaborative. I want to see what the sort of final result is, or even a trailer. I think the first trailer will give us a sense of if this is heading in the right direction. I've heard some good stuff from that movie already. I mean, I like the Chris Pine thing.
Yeah, the Chris Pine thing is good. I mean, right now, I think the question mark is, what period is this movie going to be? Is it going to be set in the past? I've heard rumors of it being, you know, that Wonder Woman is hundreds of years old, as she should be if she's essentially a goddess. Yeah. To it'll be a contemporary movie, and you know, so we'll have to wait and see. Maybe come Comic-Con next month, we'll actually get some more answers.
Yeah, I don't know if it's interesting because I don't know how many answers we're going to get about the solo DC movies. They could very well come out and be like, hey, we've got this and this and this and this. I do feel like at Comic-Con, this is just a gut feeling. I have nothing to go on. I do feel like we're going to get to see all the characters that are going to be in Batman v Superman. So I do think we're going to get a sense of what Justice League looks like.
They're going to have to top what they did last year, where they had Affleck, Cavill, and Godot come out on stage and do a wave, and showed a sizzle reel. That some of what you saw in the Ultimate trailer. Do you think there's a chance could we get a second trailer by then?
I think if you're going to target a second trailer, that's not a bad time to do it. But it's also a ways out. You know, that movie still has almost like close to a year until it comes out. So you don't want to drop trailers too frequently. But maybe we'll just see little clips of them. Maybe we'll see character posters for everybody. We've already seen we already know what four of them look like.
I want to see Cyborg.
Yeah.
And I want to see Flash.
Yeah, Flash would be.
I think those are the two that you have to, at a certain point, you're going to have to reveal those guys, especially with the Flash TV show. You can't keep dodging that bullet, if you will. Like you're gonna
you can if you're really fast.
I guess so. Oh, not if. Well, no, no spoilers.
Exactly.
It rhymes with Boltron, but no. Anywho, so the film chief also had this to say when asked about sort of the backlash against the dark tone of the Batman v Superman trailer. He said, is this basically what we're going to expect from the movies now? There is an intensity and a seriousness of purpose to some of these characters. The filmmakers who are tackling these properties are making great movies about superheroes, and they aren't making superhero movies. And when you are trying to make a good movie, you tackle interesting philosophies and character development. There is also humor, which is an important part.
That's a little bit of a backtrack, actually.
Yeah. It reminds me of the superhero show did a whole thing on like, how many jokes did we think will be in Batman v Superman? I think they settled on 3. I think that was their final count. So
there'll be 3 chuckles. Nothing LOL.
But he also added, we have a great strategy for the DC films, which is to take these beloved characters and put them in the hands of master filmmakers and make sure they all coordinate with each other. You'll see the difference when you see Batman v Superman, Suicide Squad, Justice League, and all the things that we're working on. How does that leave you?
I mean, I feel like I'm really excited about what I've seen from Suicide Squad already. Batman v Superman, I'm a little bit like, wait and see. I want to see. I'm on the fence about that one. Yep. Everything else is like just too far out to know. Yeah. Like Wonder Woman, there's as many question marks as there are like. Yeah. Well, really, we have the image of her, and we know the director, and we have some ideas.
I'd like to even know like which Green Lantern are you using. I mean, it sounds like it's going to be Hal Jordan, but you know, a lot of fans want Jon Stewart. So
I think someday we'll see Jon Stewart. I don't think it's necessarily going to be in this incarnation, and it might be that we. I don't think this is actually going to be the case, but I was like, maybe when we get to the Green Lantern movie, it'll be Jon Stewart because of things that happen in the Justice League.
Wouldn't
movies.
that be interesting
Could
to
be
see?
cool.
You know, what if Hal Jordan
Bites
whacked? You know, something.
Bites the big one, as
That's
they say.
right. Taking a dirt nap. Night train to the big adios.
Worm food.
All right, let's move on from that and start talking about some Marvel stuff, because God knows they have enough going on their plate. Oh, one thing before we leave, I forgot to mention James Wan, according to the Hollywood Reporter, is also directing the Robotech movie.
Oh yeah, that's. And by the way,
Oh yeah, he drops that.
also.
And he's still doing Conjuring too, so busy. Which I guess, you know, they had an option, according to one report. Universal did, to have him do Furious 8, but pretty much no.
I was gonna say, like, Furious 8, you know, now we know the date and everything because of Diesel tweeting that out. There's just no way.
They need to get the. I want to see the John Wick guys or Gareth Evans, who did the raid.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I think those guys, you know, each of those guys needs to get a bigger.
What if it's the guys who did Crank, Neville Dean and Taylor? Although they kind of broke up.
I think they probably won't do that because, you know, I don't think, you know, Ghost Rider 2 was all that well received, and there's Crank 2. Wow. Well, I mean, I'm just saying. Oh, we have a review on the site, sort of famously, that is very high, but you know, like, I don't think there was like much cachet in Hollywood for those guys after Ghost Rider 2, and so with the breakup.
They still get into the IGN party though. I remember at one point.
I would say the Raid guys, perfect.
Yeah,
would be great.
I think he'd be awesome, because just you saw some of the car stunt work too, and I think it was Raid 2. That was amazing. So yeah, I'd love to see those guys kind of work on a larger palette. So let's move on to some Marvel stuff. We're probably, podcast luck being what it is, we will probably have our Spider-Man star and director after this thing posts.
15 minutes after we wrap this thing, Spidey News.
This is the law of the podcast.
I had an idea today, and I shared it with you, but what if they call the new Spider-Man movies Spidey?
I like it.
I think. Well, here's. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to do this. I have no reason to think this, but they want to make it more of a humorous tone. It sounds like in the standalone movies.
Yeah.
And I think that's my big concern actually with Asa Butterfield, is that he's just too
serious.
We've only seen him be serious.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this before. I mean, maybe he's just the slap happiest guy in person, and we just haven't seen that side of him where he's just like, you know, he just keeps them coming, and we'll have to see. We'll have to see. Asa Butterfield and Tom Holland are the two front runners, according to the Hollywood Reporter, and I think Deadline had this too. And then although this kid Charlie Rowe is still in the kind of maybe has a shot, but it's down to those two guys.
What's the likelihood?
All three of those are British guys, I think.
We've seen this happen before, where everybody thinks the frontrunners are like one or two people, and then all of a sudden somebody completely.
It happened with Chris Evans and Captain America.
We felt like totally undercut by that.
It was supposed to be like Garrett Hedlund was up for it, and then it was like, well, he didn't want to test for it. We'll get to Garrett Hedlund in a bit here. We'll get some news about that, but. You know, then Chris Evans came in and kind of wrapped that up.
Kind of late in the game and just, you know, stepped in and took it.
And now I can't imagine anyone else playing it, you know?
I was really wishing for, like, back in the day, Josh Duhamel to do it. I thought he would have been a good choice. But I think now it's like Chris Evans is so Captain America, I can't think of anyone else.
And then, like, on the directing front for Spider-Man, the two front runners are Ted Melfi, who did St. Vincent, which was a Melissa McCarthy, Bill Murray dramedy.
Yeah.
And then Jonathan Levine, who did 50-50 and Warm Bodies.
Right.
And he's kind of the one I'm pushing for. And he's circled, I think he was up possibly for Ant-Man when Edgar Wright left.
Yeah, well, who wasn't, actually?
Yeah.
There was a line of like 155 people outside the Marvel door when that happened. But I think I kind of agree with you. I feel like he's actually kind of, we were talking before about how, like, the first guy was more like Mark Webb, but they're both kind of like Mark Webb, actually.
They're both,
like,
you know, more from the indie scene and stuff.
Like 50-50 was, you know, kind of like, what is it, 500 Days of Summer, 300 Days of Summer?
500.
500, okay.
Yeah.
500 Days of Summer is kind of like, you know, it's around that level of movie. And
right.
then your next project, I mean, his next project was more intermediate than that, you know, like Warm Bodies is definitely a step up from that.
Yeah, and it's a genre movie, and it balanced, you know, genre elements with comedy and romance, and I could see that working like in Spidey's favor. You know, I think you look at a template like that and you see how he can kind of do the Spidey, Mary Jane, or Spidey and Gwen.
I feel like romance is the one thing that worked in all of the Spider-Man movies. Yeah. You know, I felt like they got it right roughly in all of them. I mean, I think they could deepen that a little bit if they wanted to.
Do you think they're going to go to the Mary Jane version in this one and just skip over Gwen since that's so amazing Spider-Man?
I think right now with the way that Gwen is, you know, in the Marvel comics, and Gwen has become like Spider-Gwen, and there's all that Gwen Stacy stuff out there, I feel like they probably want to separate themselves a little bit from that, you know, because I just feel like, or maybe what they're thinking is we don't want to separate that because we could use Spider-Gwen down the line. If you know, so if they ever develop it that much.
I want to ask you, dear readers, who would you prefer to be the female lead in the? And I don't mean actress-wise, but throw those comments in if you want to. But tell us, would you rather Mary Jane, Gwen Stacy? Because remember, Peter Parker is going to be in high school in this one. So it's not like you're probably going to get Black Cat or anything. So
I would love to see Black Cat though brought in, because I think that's the one character in the Spideyverse that we were hoping to get from some of the Sony movies.
Well, it was kind of,
these are still Sony movies.
It was sort of hinted that maybe Felicia Jones.
Oh yeah, Felicity Jones.
Felicity Jones's character was supposed to be Felicia Hardy. So that never quite happened. But
it's really interesting that we never got Mary Jane in this last movie. Like, she got cut out.
Yeah, it was supposed to be Shailene Woodley.
Yeah, we would have had Shailene Woodley as kind of just like this Mary Jane hanging out in the breeze, you know, like that never really.
Well, it's amazing. Everybody in the Insurgent franchises ended up essentially with a superhero. Jai Courtney is Captain Boomerang. Shailene Woodley was almost Mary Jane. Miles Teller's Mr. Fantastic. Yep. All we need now is Theo James to get a gig.
It'll happen someday.
Yeah. So let us know, Mary Jane or Gwen Stacy, who do you want to see as the female lead in the new Spider-Man movies? Now, Martin Freeman, some rumors about his character in Captain America Civil War. We know he's going to be in Black Panther as well. Now, we initially thought he was going to be this sort of UN expert on Wakanda. That was the rumor. However, a new rumor, as rumors are wont to have, they pop up like whack-a-mole, is that he is playing the English Prime Minister, and he was referenced in a phone call with Ulysses Klaue in Avengers Age of Ultron. And that he is kind of a villain of sorts then in both Civil War and Black Panther because, again, spoiler, I guess, if these rumors pan out, but like there will be some sort of incident on British soil that either hurts soldiers or the population and kind of sparks a lot of this movement in Civil War of like, we have to do something about superheroes. So obviously you would need a major political figure to kind of step up, and essentially the British Prime Minister is kind of, you know, would do that.
They're gonna quickly bring in and kill Captain Britain. For like 15 seconds.
We're here, lads. Boom. You know?
He just
actually, I would love to see Union Jack.
Yeah.
That would be kind of fun. Although there was an early incarnation of the Union Jack character in the Howling Commandos and First Avenger. So that's the rumor about how Martin Freeman might work into it. Another rumor, Marvel rumor.
We got rumors galore today.
Rumors galore. Thank you, Internet. Charlize Theron, maybe, as Captain Marvel with Angelina Jolie directing.
Wow.
I think Charlize Theron is actually a great choice for that character.
Yeah, that's a power duo too. Like that's an actual. That's a pretty good combination.
That's a great 1-2 punch right there. You're going to be, and that's, you know, it would be great to see. I think Charlize Theron's got the clout, the gravitas, the acting chops, everything, the look of the character.
She can do humor,
drama, action. You know. Yeah. I mean, if you weren't sold on that watching Aeon Flux, I don't know what movie you were watching.
Yeah, Aeon Flux is just also the perfect encapsulation of what Aeon Flux was in on MTV. It was just, it was like you're watching the same thing, just translated to live
And it's
action.
also, I remember being in Hall H at San Diego Comic-Con, and they showed footage from that, and that crowd went wild. They just loved that clip from that movie. And I'm thinking,
really?
Yeah, and I'm thinking, what the hell are you guys watching that I'm not seeing? Of course, time justified my point of view, but just saying, Hall H isn't always the best barometer for how a thing is going to end up going over.
Well, I feel like we've Hall H is the big hall at Comic-Con, if you guys don't know, and I feel like studios have kind of shied away from the reaction now from Hall H determining their plans, because I feel like for a while everybody was like, oh, if it's received well there, then we're going to do well.
They've
and then,
been burned on a few. Yeah,
and then some things come out and you get a false sense of hope about what your project's going to do.
Movies like Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, 300 was the one that reaction and that helped
started
make that movie. Hollywood's like, okay,
I was in that room.
Do that. Oh yeah, I saw it. Yeah,
it was electric. That was like one of the best ways I've ever seen a trailer, because it was just like seeing a trailer at the Super Bowl essentially.
Yeah, it really was.
Everybody was like just ecstatic seeing that thing. They played it like 2 or 3 times. It was out of control, and it was one hell of a trailer. I mean, it was a really, really good trailer, and we hadn't seen much like that before. But yeah, you can get these false reactions like Aeon Flux, like Scott Pilgrim, I think, is a good film.
I mean, they had advertising everywhere for giant, like, huge hotel-size banners for that movie. That's a lot of money spent on marketing.
Oh, yeah.
And you were basically just singing to the choir on that one. And what is it? Sing to the choir? Preaching to the congregation?
Preaching to the choir.
Preaching to the choir.
Whatever.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Whatever. So.
Preaching to the converted.
Yeah.
Converting the restless. I don't know.
I know.
That's my butter.
Who knows? That's your way of getting us out of this downward spiral. Be curious to see sort of who ends up becoming involved in Captain Marvel. And
I love that idea. You love that idea?
Yeah,
I think so. I mean, we hadn't thought of it. I feel like we hadn't discussed that.
She's been suggested before by fans, and I think she's actually, especially coming off of Fury Road, a movie that has so much fan love and that she has personally received so many accolades.
Yeah, just for positivity.
This is like the right time to like get her now, you know.
Yeah, and I feel like this is probably like like Captain Marvel is probably timed pretty well for this as well.
Yeah,
because it's like a couple. It's like when does it start shooting? Like maybe next year, probably.
Yeah, it's what the hell is it? Is it 2017 or 2019?
Yeah, so it's probably gonna shoot next year.
There's so many of these things I can't keep all the dates right. I'm sorry.
I feel like I have to walk around with like a little sheet of paper with all the release dates on it just to be like,
There's just a quick thing about Guardians 2. James Gunn has turned in his first draft for it, and Chris Pratt has kind of made some jokey comments about how, like, he doesn't want them coming to Earth. He doesn't want to have to be saving Cleveland. Like, he wants to, like, let's stay in space. Speaking of first drafts getting turned in, Star Trek 3 is supposed to start filming in 4 weeks in Vancouver, according to Simon Pegg, who is co-writing the script. And they just turned in the first draft of that.
I'll say this about scripts in Hollywood.
Time to bite your nails a little bit on this one?
Nah. They shoot first drafts all the time.
Yeah, well,
they do.
That's why Shyamalan is where he is right now. Although Wayward Pines is getting.
I don't know though. Like I feel like a lot of movies that are probably like some people's favorite movies don't have tight scripts going into production. They have a script or an outline, and some of the stuff that you really know and love is not necessarily there when they start. But it always helps to have a really good framework, and that is a little scary when you're going in.
Maybe having sort of your basic, I don't know, it's not instilling a lot of confidence in me. They, on one hand, like, Simon Pegg has said both the best things and the worst things about this project. He said, oh, we're going to go back to what the show is about and everything, and then by the same token, he also said the original script was thrown out because it was too Star Trek-y and they wanted it to be more like Avengers. You're like, well, which is it, man?
Yeah, well, maybe it'll be. I actually feel like the J.J. Abrams one, the first one, was kind of in the middle, probably a little bit more towards Avengers than Star Trek, but that is what kind of got that movie-going audience back,
right?
And then that's some of the faith I think they lost.
And then the second one, though, too, and we've talked about this before, was fan service, but in the worst way possible. Fan service that fans rejected harshly.
I feel like it was misguided fan service, and I don't think, honestly, this is a topic for another time, but I don't think that fan service is always even a good idea. Yeah. I feel like you get too bogged down in doing it sometimes, and then it's just that's why I don't get so concerned about things changing when they change a character or something. It's like you have to trust these filmmakers know what they're doing and what is going to work for the screen as opposed to what's going to work. Like, do you remember there was like a backlash even about like magic being explained away as science and Thor? Everybody was like, "Oh my God, it's got to be magic."
Why can't they just be gods?
And it's like there's one line in the movie, that like kind of explains it, and then you're like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, and it wasn't like it was necessarily against, strictly against canon. I mean, he just simply said, what we have as technology, you see as magic because you simply don't get it.
Yeah. It's
and
like
so
I'll say this though: magic is the bloodstream of the universe.
Is that He-Man or Willow?
Forget all you know. Oh, it's Willow.
Okay.
So
I knew you were doing some sort of Billy Barty.
Yeah, Billy Barty.
Yeah, Billy Barty. He was what was the little rat-eared guy, the Yoda wannabe, and He-Man again. It was like he had the Yoda ears, but that Buddy of Fat Albert's kind of mask.
Yeah, he looked kind of like the troll thing from Labyrinth. It wasn't Orko, was it? Because they didn't do Orko.
Something like that.
Honestly, it's been so long since I've seen Masters of the Universe.
I gotta admit, it's kind of a guilty pleasure.
Frank Langella's in that. He's Skeletor, which is just amazing. Skeletor and Nixon.
That's right. One last thing about Trek 3. Justin Lin, the director, who did Furious 3 through 6.
Soon all movies in Hollywood will be directed by former Fast and Furious directors.
He said that he's a huge Star Trek fan, and he said that they want to go back to, they want to embrace the spirit of the original show and actually see them on their 5-year mission and encountering new life forms and new civilizations. And he said that they're going to use they're creating new species in this movie. They're not so it's not going to be Klingons or Romulans or anything they've seen. So when I hear things like that, then I get excited. I just sort of wish like maybe Simon Pegg's words were twisted, or maybe he just, I don't know. But there is a bit of passive aggression in there too. Like you're kind of digging the studio a little bit, and yet you're also trying to protect their product too at the same time.
It's a weird line to walk between, in the media, to walk between making sure you don't say something that's going to offend the studio and making sure you don't say something that's going to offend fans, because there's always that like outcry. And I think people like Simon Pegg are really, they have been the recipients of much fan love over the years, and so it's like,
and also one of the most public faces of fandom,
of sort of the geek
and proponents
culture,
of it.
Which is kind of like a tough mantle to carry, because it's just
a thankless mantle too.
Well, there's just a lot of opinions about these projects, and everybody's really passionate about them. So it's like you're bound to run into some kind of static at some point. Right. And I don't know.
Speaking of that,
I don't love that.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that fine line that filmmakers have to straddle between fans and dealing with the studio. Is it Colin Trevorrow? Is that how you say his name, right? The director of Jurassic World. He's been, doing a lot of press recently, and I gotta say, some of his comments are kind of like elbows at the studio a little bit, like criticizing the trailers. He didn't like the trailers that were released, criticizing releasing that clip that got that sort of like sexist label put on it, and he had some comments that he made at some overseas junkets recently where he was saying like, that scene was the wrong one to be the first one released, because he goes, we deconstruct all of that as the movie goes on, and I think what he's saying is, he comes across as like a sexist dork or dolt in that scene, but he's gonna learn his lesson, and she is the main character, and she's a strong woman and all that. But I was kind of struck by like,
Well, if that's true, I mean, you know,
and
like,
he did say he's not doing the next one, so I'm actually wondering, like, maybe he wasn't too happy.
Yeah, it's a possibility, but you know, I think this is like a decades-long struggle that directors have with the studios. You know,
especially
it's like
on a franchise, something you don't really own,
something you put your like heart and soul into, and then if you feel like it's not representing your vision in the things that's actually selling the movie, then I think it creates that internal friction for you. Like, oh, this is not my vision, or people are taking this wrong, and then you know, ultimately people do blame the director. They're like, oh, this guy's sexist because this is what his character looks like. And you can take anything from a trailer out of context, good or bad. I mean, look at the way we all thought about episode 1. You know, like everything was taken out of context. We're like, this is going to be the movie that changes humanity.
Well, you know, there's just there's a lot of this is probably maybe this is a half-ass analogy, but it must be like if you're a guy and you're storing this awesome old muscle car or whatever, some beautiful car, right? You put all this work into it, but you don't own it ultimately. Like, you did this, you made this, and then the guy who actually owns it and drives off with it, like, just, I don't know, uses it in a drive-by. I don't know. Like, so I don't know.
I like the drive-by thing. The drive-by just happened.
You know, it's an old-timey thing. He actually has a Tommy gun in his drive-by. But, like, you know, it just, you're trying to craft something, and it is mechanical, but there's a beauty to it, too, an artistry to it, and yet ultimately you don't own it, you know?
Yeah, well, trust me, I mean, if Jurassic World comes out and is like the best Jurassic Park movie since the first one, you know, there is an artistry to doing something like that. There is just like, you know, like putting your stamp on a franchise. I know a lot of people like to hate on us for our opinions on Iron Man 3, but that is the perfect like signature on a franchise. It's like that director saying,
Shane Black movie.
That director saying, this is my movie. Shane Black made this movie, but within the framework of this franchise that is, you know,
it fit within that. I mean,
I thought so too. And a lot of people disliked it, and I think that's the reason it doesn't feel like completely.
I think it's only going to get more and more divisive as we go forward on comic book
for sure.
movies. It's going to be love or hate. There's the in between is going to be just it's. You already look online now, and there's no room for a nuanced opinion. And it wasn't like the internet was a haven of that to begin with, but it really is getting more and more just divisive. And so I mean, look at everything: Iron Man 3, Man of Steel, Dark Knight Rises.
It used to be love or hate. Now it's almost like it's like. Right or wrong, almost. It's like it's not even just like
there's
I love
moral, a moral kind of stamp put on these things now, and it's like, no, it's just a movie.
Yeah, it's not just like I like this or I love this. It's like you are right if you like this, and you are wrong if you don't.
You are wrong for everything in this world.
And it's weird. It's really weird, and that label gets applied all the time online. I see it, and it's like you're right. If you come there with a middle of the road opinion, it's like, well, choose a side. Like that's that's the mentality. It's like, oh, I don't want to choose a side. I actually feel like there's positives and negatives here.
Let's move on from that and talk about. Tron 3 got canceled.
Oh, no.
At the end of last week. While it hadn't been greenlit, it was supposed to go before cameras this fall, with Garrett Hedlund and Olivia Wilde back in their respective roles from Tron Legacy, and the same director, Joseph Kosinski, back to direct as well. And Disney pulled the plug, and I think it was a Hollywood Reporter, basically kind of speculated that it was the financial disappointment of Tomorrowland, another science fiction thing, making them wary of moving ahead. What do you think? Are you going to miss Tron 3 not happening?
I think we talked about this before. Actually, somebody tweeted at me, and I'm sorry, I don't remember who did, because I wasn't thinking along those lines when we sat down to talk about this, but somebody's like, oh, you know, that movie's worth it for the visuals and soundtrack alone, which got me to thinking, do you ever go see movies purely for visuals? Do you ever go see a movie for a reason other than to see a good story?
Yeah, maybe an IMAX movie you would see at like a museum of science or something.
And is that enough ever? Like,
no, I'm too much of a story guy. I mean, that's my background is in writing, and I love going to live theater. I love movies, but like I have to be invested. Yeah, I'm not asking for everything to be some, you know, the greatest thing ever made. That's another one that gets like,
Right.
if you criticize something that's a popcorn flick, suddenly you won an Oscar movie. It's like, no. You look back at like movies like Jaws, happy 40th birthday, by the way, Jaws, that's coming up. Raiders of the Lost Ark, Star Trek II, Empire Strikes Back. They all have good stories.
Yeah.
They're well written.
Yeah, it's true.
You know, that's all I'm asking for is, you know, not hack work.
Is there a movie that's pure spectacle with no story or with like a laughable story that you're really into that you can think of? Because I was trying to think of this when I was actually when I saw this tweet, I was like, huh.
Pure spectacle.
Like, I don't know if there's ever been a movie where I was just like, I really liked it for this. You know, I'll say I was interested in Sin City 2 for that reason, because I was like, it's interesting to revisit that world. I really like that look and feel of the original Sin City. And it was kind of like, the second one didn't do it for me, but it was fun to see the visuals. It was like fun to like revisit that world in a way. I just didn't feel like it was a complete
I could have settled for
experience.
a music video though of that too. Like if you're going to do that, then like, I don't know.
And maybe it is. Maybe it's just the form. Like film is more of a narrative form, and something like a music video is more like, this is a sense poem. Enjoy it for what it is, you know.
I mean, is there any hope for Tron? Like some fans have even started a petition.
No,
there's no hope for it. I mean,
I don't think so. I mean, it might be one of those things that they revisit and reboot again, like 20 years from now. But I don't.
I've never done that.
But I don't. We were like dubious on the need for it in the first place. We were like, you know, after Tron 2, there was just not enough support for it, and I feel like it's similar to like when you're sitting there waiting around to see if your favorite TV show is going to be renewed, and you just see those ratings aren't quite there and aren't quite there.
I kind of feel that way too, and I'm going to catch hell for this, but about Pacific Rim too.
Yeah,
I mean, that's another one where did okay domestically, kind of disappointing, but internationally it made money, so it justifies the sequel. But now it's going to be this many years later. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if in a couple, you know, Pacific Rim 2 gets the plug pulled on it.
It might be, and it's another one of those in that category of Guillermo del Toro projects, which is he is always like developing a bunch of stuff at the same time, and more power to him. But a lot of that stuff does fall by the wayside over time, and I think that, you know, it might happen, it might not happen. I actually think that Pacific Rim.
That might be an example of one of those movies, all visuals, and the narrative was. I was surprised at that because of, you know, the Guillermo you get, and we've talked about this before too, but like the Spanish language movie Guillermo, master.
A Tale of Two Guillermos.
Exactly, and then the Hollywood Guillermos, that is more the eye candy guy. Like you know, and I thought Pacific Rim, I didn't care about any of those characters. I thought, in fact, I didn't think it was any better than an Emmerich movie. I'm sorry, and I got a little hell back in the day when I first saw the trailer and I said that, but you know, I thought it was kind of as brainless as one of those, and but it looked cool.
Yeah, I feel like I don't mind. I actually really love it that he is this dichotomy, that there is this like playful Hollywood side, and then there's this, because it's more of a reflection of a full person, right? Like, I like to eat a Twinkie, but I will also go for a 10-course tasting menu at a high-end restaurant. You know, like both of those things are
Twinkie.
Are the deconstruction of the Twinkie. No, but like both of those experiences are fun to me, and I think that it's similar. Like you're gonna listen, you know, you're gonna go to the symphony, and then you're gonna listen to freaking Ace of Base. You know, like. I just had to bring Ace of Base into the conversation.
Wow, I went back a ways on that one. That's
all that she wants is another baby. She's gone tomorrow.
Listen, I Saw the Sign. Wasn't that them?
Yeah.
All right.
Oh yeah. I'm dropping Ace of Base references.
There we go.
I don't even know. Like Guillermo del Toro just got compared to Ace of Base.
Sorry, you heard it here first, people. Guillermo. I can't control this guy.
No reason to.
Let's just. I'm going to rattle off some news items real quick. Sony's distribution rights for the Bond franchise expire with Spectre, which comes out in the States in November. The new head of Sony, Tom Rothman, sure didn't seem like he was all that charged about keeping them. He's like, oh yeah, we'll fight for them, but we've had a good run and a lot of people want them. I'm like, it's kind of like one of your only crown jewels. You want to hold on to this stuff,
he's no Peter Cetera. I am the man who will fight for your honor.
I thought you said Peter Serretta there from Slash Film for a minute. I was
No,
like, wait a
Peter
minute, what does he
Cetera,
have to do with this? But yeah, I was like, Tom, don't you kind of want to hold on to this baby? You guys have done a great job with it.
I think Sony has done a wonderful job with
the highest earning Bond movies, the classiest ones they've made in a generation.
I feel like I think they will fight hard for them. I think that might be like a tone
Some of the scuttlebutt, though, is that the head of MGM, now Eon Productions, Broccoli and Wilson, they control creatively what happens with the Bond movies, but Bond is essentially owned by MGM.
Right.
MGM is in a partnership with Sony. That partnership, distribution partnership that expires with Spectre. Well, the head of MGM is buddies with the guy who runs Warner's. And now they're thinking Warner's has the inside track on getting it. I don't know if that's a good home for Bond, because he's going to have to be, is going to have to be competing for kind of marketplace with all these other Warner's franchises. This the smorgasbord of DC movies that are peppered throughout the year. Harry Potter trilogy spin-offs. By the way, Eddie Redmayne confirmed as Newt Scamander. Get that out of the way. You know, and then all these Lego movies.
Yeah.
That doesn't really sound like Bond is going to be, he's running the chance of being an afterthought.
Well, you know, Warner Brothers does love a franchise, and I think that would be a good get for them, actually, whether it's a good fit or not.
Warner Brothers, actually, there is a little precedent. They put out Never Say Never Again, which was the non-canonical Bond movie. That whole long story, look it up online. I think we've written about it before, but like, basically the guy who made Thunderball kind of co-wrote it with Ian Fleming, the creator of Bond. He held on to the rights, yada yada, goes on for years, and he essentially did a remake of Thunderball with Never Say Never Again.
Yeah.
And so Warner Brothers put it out. So it wouldn't be the first Bond movie they put out.
Yeah, I mean, as long as they do right by the series, whoever does it, you know, there's MGM behind it, and then there's you know, Eon.
And MGM and Warner Brothers also worked on the Hobbit movies. So you know, there is an existing partnership there. So
we'll see.
It does kind of sound, and also apparently like the Sony hack hurt that relationship, because a lot of emails about issues they had with the Spectre script, and the script itself got out online. So there might just be some hurt feelings there of being like, all right, let's go with somebody else.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Also going on at Sony, Dark Tower movie, reportedly a new writer-director attached. Nikolai Arcel, I think is how you say it. He's a guy who directed A Royal Affair, and he co-wrote the original Swedish Girl with the Dragon Tattoo movie.
I feel like that, like, how many iterations of people can that project go through until we finally
That's
see
going to be an interesting documentary one day. That'll be like the one they made about Dune last year.
Oh,
you know,
Jodorowsky's Dune.
You know, it'll be interesting to see sort of like the long road.
It's a really long road, and like that book is so cinematic. Those books are really cinematic, you know,
and it's like, going to still have a TV component too.
It just seems like a huge no-brainer, and like I can't believe that it's taken so long to get this.
And also, like
going.
You know, the It movie sounds like it's basically fallen by the wayside. We talked about that recently, but like, yeah, it to me it's kind of interesting that if Dark Tower ends up happening, but It doesn't, and It just seems like a little bit easier to kind of sell. Kids, creepy childhood, killer clown.
What's Stephen King gonna do for money?
I don't know. But if you see him outside of your local Jack in the Box, help a brother out, you know?
Just buy him some jalapeno poppers and.
Couple other just news items going to rattle off. Disney.
One more Sony thing.
Yes.
The Sony hack.
Oh, getting a documentary.
Getting a documentary as well.
That's going to be interesting. That's going to, you know, I'd be curious to see sort of how deep down that rabbit hole do they go.
You know, it's interesting because I don't know what they've told their employees, whether they've made them sign NDAs on like, you know, internal stuff. You know, like it's really interesting. Like you know, it seems like the climate there was very like. It was just crazy because people were having to work off of notebooks and you know, it was all kinds of stuff that went on around the hack.
It was like the 90s. You actually had to use a phone and go down and talk to somebody and write things on paper.
Yeah, I know.
Maybe look something up in a book. I don't know. It's,
they don't even have books in a certain
you know,
era.
how they didn't end up just having two sticks starting a fire, I don't know.
They did. It would be awesome if you went down there and it was like, and it was
The
like
bloody palm print in some of these shows. It's like Lord of the Flies style stuff.
Sony is like right down the street from where
yeah.
our office is, so we
run
get to go
into.
there.
I run into one of my publicist friends over there pretty regularly at the same coffee shop every morning.
Nice.
You know?
Yeah.
So.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so Disney, you know, they're turning all their cartoon stuff into live action movies now. Another one they have in development, this one from the producer of the hit movie Cinderella, which I believe has passed 500 million worldwide, is a live action version of Night on Bald Mountain. That sequence from Fantasia with the big, you know, devil looking guy. What is it, Cherubog or whatever his name is?
I don't know, is that his name? Cherubog?
Cherubog, you know? So that's going to be, that's in development. Clint Eastwood's follow-up to American Sniper is going to be about Captain Sully Sullenberger, the hero pilot, Miracle on the Hudson, landed the plane on the Hudson River a couple of years back. Nobody got killed. It was kind of the basis for Flight, except they made him a booze hound who kills people. You know.
Cocaine addict, whatever.
You know? But
cool.
yeah, this one's going to be a bit more of a Valentine, if you will.
Maybe a
heroic pilot.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, exactly.
And
maybe
then,
a nicer take.
And then
I loved Flight, though, I have to say. Like,
I didn't like Flight.
Oh, you didn't?
No, I didn't care for it. No.
Jim over here with the opinions.
Yeah, I didn't care for it. I love that sequence with the plane. I mean, eye candy sequence there of horror. Like if you were ever scared of flying, not, you know.
Oh man.
But I want to jump into some other stuff real quick. The Rock is going to star in a remake, Big Trouble in Little China. And The Rock is coming off of his biggest solo weekend ever at the box office with San Andreas.
Yeah.
So what do you think about The Rock is being our new Jack Burton?
Oh my God, that movie, I feel like so many people are so protective of that movie, and it's like sacrilegious to even remake it at all. And a lot of people are saying, how could you make that movie better or even do it justice? The Rock, by the way, gets involved in some of these remake situations.
Yeah.
Or like these franchise
Use the
franchise starters
Viagra
or whatever.
Stuff. Yeah, and he does jump in there.
I mean, I understand why he's a good choice for that if you're going to reboot that movie, but this is the one time I'm usually like, oh yeah, you should reboot that movie. I'm not even that beholden to that film, but like, it just seems like who is this for? Because you're gonna piss off the loyal following. I don't feel like many people are going to embrace it.
To middle age. I mean, honestly, you youngins out there, do you know Big Trouble in Little China? Do you care about it? Does it mean anything to you? Let us know in the comments. We're kind of curious.
He's got that charisma that will work in a movie like that. But
he does. I mean, Kurt Russell and him do actually. I'd love to see them in a movie together. Actually, they do have that sort of, that same sort of bro kind of vibe to them.
They were in a movie together.
Oh my God, yeah, Furious 7. I would love to see them in another movie together, like a Furious 8. Thank you for reminding me.
They should do like just a movie where it's just those two guys.
Yeah,
I'd like to see a movie where
want.
it's those two guys like just having coffee.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, The Rock's biggest solo movie, as I said, was San Andreas. 55 million last weekend. Nice. Aloha, Cameron Crowe's much maligned movie, and apparently justifiably so, bombed in 6th place with just under 10 million.
I mean, that movie, if there could have been less advertising for that movie, it would have been like, I don't know, it was like...
Emma Stone as Captain Ing. She's supposed to be half Chinese, half Swedish, and all in love with Bradley Cooper.
Yeah, I just didn't... it saw no good press for that, and they really didn't do that much press at all.
And that was another victim too of the Sony hack, because those emails of them saying what a turd got out there. So that was, that alone was rough.
I feel bad for Cameron Crowe though, because he's had such a good track record, and then just to have
between that and Elizabethtown, I mean, a lot of people are saying he's kind of like. It's kind of like Michael Mann having his last few stumbles. It's a lot of those directors who were really hot in the 90s and early 2000s are having, Oliver Stone too, like having a rough time of it, like finding that kind of their ground again.
Crowe's last really good movie, really big movie was Almost Famous, and I feel like that's...
Yeah. I wasn't even that nuts about Vanilla Sky.
Yeah, I liked Vanilla Sky. I feel like it's not as good as Almost Famous though.
Almost Famous is awesome.
A way more complete movie. And also Vanilla Sky, you know, you have to compare it to the original Abre los Ojos, and that was like really.
Look at you dropping the Spanish over here.
I mean, what?
Captain Redbeard.
Yeah. So I mean, which was a good movie as well. I actually think I think Vanilla Sky's remake was very serviceable, but it just, you know.
Yeah.
What was the need for it?
I want to talk about some Star Wars rumors because keeping it real wouldn't be keeping it real without Star Wars
slinging
and superheroes.
Some Star Wars hash.
So again, rumors. One rumor is that the second anthology film. Yes, we've heard it's a Boba Fett movie, but again, this rumor coming around that it's going to be a Han Solo Boba Fett movie about basically the first time that they cross paths and why Han Solo's a wanted man by the time we meet him in A New Hope.
My favorite part of that whole rumor was Bosk is going to be a key part of that movie.
Man,
like the dude
I love me the Bosk
with the lizard toes.
Dude, he's a lizard in a flight suit. What's not to love?
There's
have a Bosk figure on my desk.
I love Bosk. So if that turns out to be true, it's interesting.
Oh, I totally want to audition for Bosk.
How
much acting do I need?
Yeah. Oh, you got the role. You just did it.
I did it. I can do vocal performance.
Who can do Han Solo? Like, who is good for Han Solo?
One rumor was Aaron Paul, which is all wrong. I love Aaron Paul, but no. And I mean, honestly, Chris Pratt, but you can't. He's already playing him in Guardians, and he's up for the indie thing. I don't know. I mean,
Pratt is perfect for me. Like,
Bradley Cooper, I don't know. I mean,
could do it. Somebody in the comments actually said the guy who plays Seth in House of Cards looks a lot like Han Solo. He's the press guy that came in the second season.
I didn't really get through the second season.
Oh, so he looks similar to I don't remember the actor's name, and he looks similar to Harrison Ford, but I don't. He just has not shown that like playfulness.
Do you need a star though for Han Solo, or should you just be an unknown?
Here's the other question. Oh, here's the other thing I'll throw out there. You know, much like Bond, I don't feel like you need to necessarily make Han Solo look like Harrison Ford, even if you're trying to imagine that continuity. If it's just, to me, it's enough if you say this is Han Solo. You know, like
Josh Gad.
Yeah, Josh Gad, put him in there. He would love it. He's a huge Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. Like, I would say, like, just get the best person for the job. Actually, you know, might be kind of interesting, and you may disagree with me completely. Is Aaron Taylor Johnson?
I think he's wooden as hell.
You think he's wooden as hell?
The only thing I liked him in really was Kick-Ass and Nowhere Boy. He was really going to Nowhere Boy, where he played young John Lennon, but nah.
I'd be interested. I mean,
to me, he was the weakest one in Avengers 2.
There's this part of me, you know, speaking about these anthology films, and I know we're going to get the other rumor. There's this part of me that's like, can we just get away from the core characters in these films? I'd like to. You know, Rogue One seems like it's on a really good track with that.
Yeah.
But like,
do you think part of the reason is that these are characters that sell merchandise?
Partially,
and you're not going to be able to keep selling it on 74-year-old or however old he is now, Harrison Ford's back anymore.
Yeah.
So you want to reintroduce a whole new generation of these characters and then milk that for another 30 years.
Yeah, possible. But, you know, you can also, it's Star Wars. That machine drives a lot, you know.
It is a galaxy for a lot of places you can go.
But, I mean, like, it will drive its own merchandising if you do the story right. And I feel like, you know, the prequel characters are beloved by the generation that grew up with them.
Yeah.
But the original characters, you're right, are you just so like carry through the whole thing, and you can sell stuff along the way. But I would love for them to
Han Solo.
Oh, interesting. He's too big, I think. But yeah, I feel
I just caught a lot of hate for even suggesting that.
Brandon Routh. Yeah. I like Brandon Routh a lot, though. I think he looks like one of the nicest guys I think I've met in Hollywood.
He's a sweet guy.
But yeah, there's this part of me that's just like, get away from the old characters.
Well, if you guys have any thoughts about who should play Han Solo, and don't say Chris Pratt because he's not going to do it.
We just said it, and you shouldn't.
Yeah, so don't do that.
He won't do it.
Come up with somebody else, and let us know in the comments below. I'm really curious to see, like, it could be, you know, somebody who's on, and don't say Nathan Fillion either. No Nathan Fillion and no Chris Pratt. Table those two, come up with other people. Those are the rules of this challenge, and let us know in the comments about who you think should play Han Solo. Now, the other rumor, Star Wars rumor, is that Disney is trying to bring back Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi for a whole new trilogy. An Obi-Wan-centric trilogy because we never had that before.
Yeah, I feel like, well, I actually think that he'd be down for that. And
I think he would be, but do we need a whole trilogy? Maybe one movie? Like, part of the rumor is that he would be like looking out for little Skywalker, you know? But they'd have to explain why at a certain point he's just like, all right, he's growing up and chasing womp rats. I'm just gonna go hide in my cave.
I'm gonna go chill in the cave, and I'm gonna pawn him off on Baru.
Yeah. Well, he's already dropped them off.
Oh yeah, true.
At the end of Sith, so yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I forget about that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like that it is the rumor with a capital R because I don't know how developed that is, and the fact that it would be a trilogy
and tying it to the prequels, which they clearly are trying to sidestep some, but like.
I think that's maybe a road too far, but I wouldn't mind. I should say I don't know about like. I wouldn't mind seeing Ewan McGregor reprise that role if they're going to do it.
Something, yeah.
But it kind of goes back to
what about putting him in old age makeup as the Alec Guinness era Obi-Wan?
Maybe, yeah.
I mean, if you're going to go on to Tatooine,
yeah,
he could be there. Maybe he makes Han Solo forget that he ever met him, and then somewhere, you know, he comes back and finds this guy because he knows at some point I need a ship.
Yeah, yeah.
And Chewbacca is.
Well, the interesting thing about that Han Solo rumor also is that we would see like younger Chewie as well in that story, and we would get.
Going to be a puppy.
Yeah, the Chewie puppy. That'd be awesome.
That's right.
But yeah, I mean, the Obi-Wan one I think is like take that with a big grain of salt. I actually think they probably are developing the Han Solo one.
Yeah, something tells me like you want your action hero back out there.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens with the older Han Solo in Force Awakens or Episode 8. Something tells me he's only in the one.
Yeah, I mean, I think you know, there's a probably shelf life on all of the first series characters because I think that they're I think they're gonna. We don't know how much they're gonna be in these movies. They could just be in for cameos or whatever.
Yeah,
but we'll see.
I mean, I think too. Like, part of the thing with Han Solo is you really can go and have a bunch of adventures that can take place in some, you know, not clearly defined era.
Yeah.
But you can't do anything with young Luke that isn't going to directly tie into his story. You can't really do anything with Leia either that isn't going to. But with Han and Lando and Chewie, you can have, like they did in the EU, like just have them running around on adventures and stuff like that. And also, I mean, this week, spoiler if you follow comics, but you haven't heard about this. Okay. Do you care? Do you know?
No, I know, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So Han Solo has a wife.
Yeah.
And the Star Wars comics, which are put out by Marvel, which is owned by Disney, so it's all canon. Han Solo has a wife at the time of A New Hope. So maybe she could pop up in there, and you could see young Lando show up in this movie too.
I feel like that marriage in the comics is a smoke screen in a way. Like I feel like it's one of those situations where it's like, oh, I have this wife, but it came from these other weird circumstances.
So you think it's going to be like Blues Brothers with Carrie Fisher as John Belushi's wife? I hope it plays out just like that.
That'd be amazing.
Like, I didn't get my suit back from the cleaners. It was locust of flood. I swear to God. You know?
So good. I don't think that marriage is going to last very long in the comics.
Yeah.
And I think it's a big deal right now, but it's actually a bit of like retrofitting for that character too. Like it's like it.
And we don't know why he got
changes the
married.
character.
Maybe it was a matter of necessity. Maybe we don't know. You know,
trying to get his green card on Alderaan.
Exactly. I kind of joked about that in one video. Maybe it was the only way to save his skin was you must marry my daughter and become my heir and whatever. And then he screws off out of town.
Every time that happened in an old movie, I was like, really, you want this guy to marry your daughter, like to do this thing? Like that always seemed like a stupid plot contrivance to me.
Yeah. All right. That's about it on the news front. Let's talk about opening this weekend. We have Spy, the Melissa McCarthy movie that also has Jason Statham and Rose Byrne and Jude Law. Got is getting great reviews, including from our own Lucy O'Brien.
I saw something like 94% on Rotten Tomatoes last time I looked.
It's a really well-regarded movie. I saw it a few months ago at CinemaCon. I liked it. I don't think I liked it as much as everyone else, but it was cute. It's fun. Entourage, which I haven't heard anything good about.
Yeah.
And then Insidious Chapter 3 also opening this weekend. And our review is now up on the site, and we give it a positive review. And outside of that, I'm also hearing decent things about it. So
yeah, our own Chris Tilley from the UK, who's a big horror fanatic, was really interested, or really liked that movie.
Let's see. Now, Spy is tracking in the 40 million range, with San Andreas coming in second place around 25. Insidious ahead of Entourage, 25 to 18 million. Again, these are just predictions based on industry tracking. I don't know. Entourage, do you think that is just an opening night, opening day, front-loaded thing, and then it's just going to plummet?
I don't
really feel like there was any appetite for that movie.
I don't really know what the appetite is. It's a weird one because it happened later than I think everybody wanted it to, in terms of Entourage.
The show went off like, 4 years ago?
Yeah, and I feel like if that 2 years would have been about the sweet spot, people would have been like, oh, I'm clamoring for this. I think the world has changed, like tastes have changed in that time too. Like I feel like people have less and less sort of like, I don't think anybody has any patience for the Entourage guys right now. It's just like, what do we need this for?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, I could see that opening fourth, but I think there's maybe enough of a curiosity factor that it might be a horse race between that and Insidious.
I don't think it's going to, like the only other one you can kind of point to is Sex and the City, but that appealed to a different audience.
Yeah,
essentially half the population, and I think it was a far more well-regarded series, and there was just, I think it was an easier sell. I mean, these are story about 4 douchebag actors in LA. A friend of mine who, in his review, not on the site, but a guy at another site, was like, if I wanted to see undeserving D-bags bragging about their success, all I had to do is go to lunch here in LA. Like, I don't need to go see their movie, Yeah,
really, I mean, it's not as ubiquitous as you would think. There are certain spots where you can hear that stuff, but in a lot of places in Hollywood, you don't run into that. But yeah, you can hear it if you want to. You can go to the places where that stuff is being talked about. People it's all machismo and all that loveliness. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I said they might compete, but now that I'm thinking about it, I think actually Insidious 3 is probably going to do better.
Yeah, I mean, Insidious has the horror movie kind of factor to it. And also, Entourage, how were the numbers when it was on the air?
Yeah, it was okay. And I mean, I think the finale did well, but like, it's not like a network show, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like it had this like
it's not Star Trek or something where it's like it came from TV and now it's going to dominate the theater.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. We'll see how it does. The fact that there's not really positive buzz out there about it is going to hurt it, I think. If people came back and they were like, oh hey, this is a really fun way to do an Entourage movie and it's great. Cool, but I kind of feel like it's going to be a 2-hour episode.
And it was done for, I want to say it was like 30 million, but that's not including marketing. And if it only makes like 18 this weekend, I mean, I don't know. I guess it's kind of an uphill battle. Just because of the law of the podcast, I'm checking the news real quick to see if Spider-Man was cast. I don't want us to get hosed.
I love that we're doing. Now it's just a race against time.
It is. I mean, basically, people. Here, I'm going to check Marvel.com.
Do it.
I have to. I can't deal with this if it breaks right as soon as we leave. No.
Well, we're in the clear, which means we're not in the clear at all.
Which means it's bound to happen in about 20 minutes. So, all right. Well. That'll about do it for this week's podcast. We'll be back next week with the reader email and all that jazz. Mataz and Roth will be back next week. So, again, want to hear what you got to say about
tell us
everything
about Entourage.
That we talked about.
What do you think Entourage is going to do?
Spider-Man's girlfriend, all that jazz. Let us know. Star Wars rumors. Who should play Han Solo that isn't Chris Pratt or Nathan Fillion? Because neither of those are going to happen. So let us know in the comments, and for all things movies, keep it here on IGN. Thanks for watching.